Okay, guys, this is going to be a bit of a long one, but I think this is really important to talk about, and this is going to be in-depth. But starting off, migrants stranded in boat off Tunisia, as authorities say centers overcrowded. A rescue boat carrying around 75 migrants, most of them from Bangladesh, has been stuck off Tunisia for 12 days after authorities refused to let them disembark, the Red Crescent said on Tuesday. The Egyptian boat rescued the migrants in Tunisian waters, but authorities in the government of Medellin, I almost said medicine there, Medellin, say its migrant centers are too overcrowded to allow them to come ashore, leaving the vessel 25 kilometers from the coastal city of Zarsis. A government source said the migrants had refused food and medical aid and were demanding that they be allowed to cross into Europe, their likely target hoping to reach the chance for a better life when they set off. Yeah, but the thing is, depending on where you're going, that better life probably doesn't exist. Europe is not the wealthy, well-off thing that people think it is. Middle Eastern countries may have already fallen into the abyss, but Western countries are standing at the precipice of the abyss and looking and staring into it. Red Crescent official Mongi Slim said doctors had reached the boat to provide some medical help, but others had repeatedly refused any aid. After 12 days at sea, the migrants are in a bad condition, he said to Reuters. Among the group who set off from Libya, 64 are from Bangladesh and the rest are from Morocco, Sudan, and Egypt. The Red Crescent said the details of the rescue were not immediately clear. Neighboring Libya's west coast is a main departure point for African migrants hoping to reach Europe by paying human traffickers, though numbers have dropped due to an Italian-led effort to disrupt smuggling networks and support the Libyan Coast Guard. At least 65 migrants drowned last month when their boat capsized in the Mediterranean Sea off the Tunisian coast after they had left Libya, hoping to reach Europe. In the first 4 months of 2019, 164 people are known to have died on the route, a smaller number but a higher death rate than the previous years, with one dying for every 3 who reach Europe shores, the UN refugee agency UNHCR said. But yes, Western countries are standing on the precipice of the abyss and staring in. We're not that much better off when you think about it. They might already be in the abyss in the Middle East, but all it would take is for one nice hard shove and we'll be in there with them. So you're not coming to some rich, wealthy paradise that's going to give you everything you want. Not even close. And not only that, I don't think you should even bother at this point. For two reasons, and I will categorize them one as negative and positive. Reason one, an NGO on the 13th of November in 2018 was exposed teaching migrants how to trick EU border guards into sneaking in and pretending to be refugees when they're in fact economic migrants. A group that helped over 15,000 refugees and migrants to get into Europe has been caught on tape admitting to systematically training asylum seekers to exploit screening interviews by feigning trauma and persecution. Ariel Richter, the executive director of Advocates Abroad, a major non-profit NGO that provides legal aid to migrants, has been caught on tape openly discussing how she teaches refugees to lie to border agents. The video was released by Canadian right-wing activist, author, and internet personality Lauren Southern, and only a part of her new documentary film project, Borderless, which takes on the European migration crisis. And yes, Borderless was briefly unavailable on YouTube. There was an attempt at soft censorship, and it was blocked. But Borderless has since been released, and I have viewed it at least once. It is an eye-opening documentary like you would not believe. It really shows you just what this migrant crisis really is. These people are not, like most of these people, they are not refugees. They are economic migrants who these NGOs have somehow convinced that Europe is this paradisic place that is so much better than their Middle Eastern country that's going to give them everything they want. It's a paradise where all their needs will be met. But that is simply not the case. And of course, why they've been telling them this could be a subject of many a wild conspiracy theory. But I'm going to play it safe and just say that probably the main reason is because these people are globalist ideologues. And they'd rather pursue a narrative than the truth. And so they think it's going to be worth it in the end. They want to culturally mix Europe, which they have admitted to as much in the past. Not the NGOs specifically, but people involved with them. But yeah, this is something they've actually said. It says, I tell them this is acting. All of this is acting. For them to get through, they must act their part in theater. One method she teaches migrants, this woman, is to exploit the presumed Christian sympathies of the predominantly Eastern Orthodox Greece, and getting them into Greece by pretending to have been persecuted for being Christian. She even describes telling them how to pray during interviews, ironically because doing so reflects honesty. At first, the organization responded to the initial release of the video, tweeting, Advocates Abroad was made aware of a video that shows a heavily edited version of an informal conversation that was secretly filmed without consent. This video is being used for political right-wing effect. Blah, blah, blah. Wow, really? Saying that it's used as for political motivation? Well, I think that's the case of the cock call. If you're saying that is politically motivated, then I think that's the case of the pot calling the kettle black. But yeah, this is happening. This is real. Watch Borderless. I'll put a link down in the description so you can see it yourself. But now, this is more of the positive side, okay? This is something that might argue for these NGOs. This is from an actual pro-NGO blog. It is very well put together. But what challenges do NGOs face, and what are the solutions? Well, they actually don't say much about solutions, but these are real problems that could explain their behavior on some level. What are the main challenges NGOs face today? Lack of funds. Many NGOs find it difficult to garner sufficient continuous funding for their work. Gaining access to appropriate donors is a major component of this challenge. They may have limited resource mobilization skills locally, so instead they wait for international donors to approach them. Absence of strategic planning. Poor governance and networking. Limited capacity, development approaches, grant funding, etc., etc. Right? They are struggling. Very noticeably they are struggling. But I still fail to see how that excuses in any way lying and manipulating to get people over the border. I believe these NGOs have been infiltrated by globalist ideologues who just want to try and culturally mix Europe. And then America is next. Because they want globalism. They think it's a good thing. And on the surface, it's like communism. Yes, it looks wonderful. It's great on paper, but terrible in practice. Cultural and religious values will clash, and brother and sister wars will begin as a result of globalism. I mean, you know what happened in Germany? Where now there's non-extremist and extremist Muslims causing general discomfort and confusion within German society. And I actually have a friend who lives in England who has been, I believe, has been called racial slurs for whites to her face by Muslims. And she gets disrespected she has been regularly disrespected, and they get away with it. This whole globalist race mixing thing, cultural mixing, is not going to work. And as for these migrants stranded in the boat off Tunisia, I am sorry, but you're just adding to the problem. You're adding so much to the problem. Go home, or just stay in Tunisia. Don't come to Europe. Don't go to Europe, and certainly don't come to America. Go home or stay in Tunisia. Please. Anyway.